Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and we are lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free, and for the love of Jesus Christ, and for Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be doing our show exposing what pacifism is and what it's been doing to the Church, with Brother Alexis Bonello.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV, and for this very important topic, because looking back all my years doing the apostolic works in the church, going back to the time even I was in college, pacifism is the recurring problem you run into Catholics that neutralize them and keep them from fulfilling their promises they made to the Holy Spirit at confirmation, to be warriors for Christ in this world. And it is a terrible error, and it is like an angel of light. It poses to be the true Christian spirit. So much so that some people think saints promoted this, so that this comes from the saints of our church. So we're going to learn in this program why this is actually a foreign idea that comes from the enemies of Christianity. So let's start with the founder of pacifism. Let me first define what pacifism is before we get to that. So pacifism is the ideology that says it is always morally wrong and illegitimate to use physical violence ever, even to defend the innocent, the weak, or those who can't defend themselves. So already you can see that this doesn't agree with Catholic morals, but now we'll find out. So who is the founder of pacifism? I personally, before we did this show, thought that pacifism was an idea that's going back thousands of years. That's not the case. AJ?
Yep, so it's by Emile Arnaud. He was born 1864 and died 1921. He was a French lawyer, a notary, a writer, noted for his anti-war rhetoric and for the coming term pacifism. Arnaud founded the Ligue Internationale de la Paix et de la Liberté, International League for Peace and Freedom, in 1861, and was elected its first president in 1900. In 1901, he codified his beliefs into a treatise entitled The Code de la Paix, outlining and defining the goals, political positions, and methodology of the peace movement in general. He described this new political movement as pacifism, setting up as a counterbalance to the belligerence of emerging political ideologies such as socialism, anarchism. He advocated humanism, charity, and tolerance, nonviolent conflict resolution, and reaching mutual beneficial political solutions through establishing consensus. Emile was a speaker at the Second Universal Peace Conference, which was preceded by a service at St. Paul's Cathedral. When France entered World War I in 1914, Arnaud volunteered for military service, even though over age, and ended the war with the Croix de Guerre. So he became a hero.
So here we have it. So a lot of contradictions here. He's a pacifist telling other people not get involved in war, and the first thing he does is he signs up. So it's good that he signed up and defended his country, but it shows that he was a complete hypocrite. And modern pacifism has gone evidently far beyond his position. They wouldn't even sign up. In fact, most people I know who are pacifists are merely pretending some kind of virtue when they're really draft dodging. And pacifism becomes a popular ideology every time there's a war and a draft in some sort of country. But you notice what he's the founder of, the International League. So as soon as you hear of the Ligue Internationale, you know you're dealing with a socialist, and you know that it's not founded by Christians. So socialism and Marxism, they come from outside of Christianity, and they see Christianity as the enemy. So what better trick to play on simple-minded Christians than to tell them that the truth of Christianity is something other than it is, and pretend that's what it is. So this is really like a angel of light movement. This is like a anti-Christic doctrine. And I've known some people that are so addicted to this doctrine that they deny scripture and they criticize Jesus Christ for cleansing the temple. So this League Internationale, what is it and what has it done?
So it works. It it's it's still around. It became, let me find it here. The International Democratic Socialist Movement.
Okay, so there you have it.
And one of the famous people who are members is a non-Christian writer called Victor Hugo.
And if you don't recognize that name, you might recognize the Broadway play, the movie Les Miserables, which was about the French Revolution. And the play wasn't as anti-war as the book, which is even more so, because it lauds people who betray their country. It lauds people that betray one another. And so, needless to say, Victor Hugo, he got involved in all kinds of things, didn't he?
Yeah, he backed Napoleon. Um, he backed Napoleon so much that whenever Napoleon had to be moved to exile, he had to go into exile. Then he began playing around with spiritualism and got really hooked into it, got into it big time. And well, he took part in seances, and some of the demons portrayed themselves as our blessed Lord, Dante, and Shakespeare.
So, you know, if don't buy Les Miserables as a book to read to your your children. It's not an author that you want anything to do with in your household. So, pacifism, does it have a history after Victor Hugo and Emile Arnaud?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was even weaponized.
And what do you mean?
The CIA.
And how have they used pacifism?
Well, I'm going to read you this report. In the 1990s, it came to light that soldiers from the 4th Psychological Operations Group have been interning at the American news networks, cable's news network, CNN, and National Public Radio, NPR. The program was an attempt to provide its PSYOP personnel with expertise developed by the private sector under its Training with Industry program. The program caused concern about the influence these soldiers might have on American news, and the programs were reported to be terminated. But one day before Rolling Stones reported that Lieutenant General Caldwell commanded the execution of an illegal PSYOP campaign against U.S. senators, Information Week published an article revealing that the military sought a contractor to deploy false identities on social media sites like Facebook to disseminate DoD propaganda to civilians. Bloomberg's NYPD got caught working with the Central Intelligence Agency to create a demographic unit of plainclothes officers that explicitly monitors the city's 800,000 strong Muslim community by spying on mosques, bookstores, and student organizations. The department has gone so far as to monitor some kids in its own youth soccer league because their team was sponsored by the Arab American Association of New York. New York Times reported Washington, the Central Intelligence Agency, has opened an internal inquiry into whether its close cooperation with New York Police Department in the decades since the September 11th attacks has broken any laws prohibiting the agency from collecting intelligence in the United States. During his first congressional testimony, the CIA Director David H. Petraeus said Tuesday the agency's inspector general had begun to investigate its work with the police department to make sure we are doing the right thing. Marie E. Harf, the spokeswoman for the agency, said that cooperation with American police forces in the past decade should not be a surprise to anyone, that its work with the department in New York is exactly what the American people deserve. Later, at the massive protests against the 2004 Republican National Convention in New York City, Mayor Bloomberg gave special buttons to nonviolent activists and proclaimed that they would be peaceful. Bloomberg got political points for being hip and lenient, even as his administration cracked down on dissidents during the week of protests. Pacifists got added perk. Anyone wearing a button would be given discounts at dozens of Broadway shows, hotels, museums, restaurants. As Mayor Bloomberg put it, it's no fun to protest on an empty stomach. Law-abiding protesters were given buttons of the Statue of Liberty, holding a sign that reads "Peaceful Political Activists." And the anti-RNC protests in New York were little more than that. Fun. A huge amount of energy was expended weeks in advance by the NYPD in attempts to alienate, exclude militant activists. Plainclothes officers distributed thousands of leaflets the weekend before the convention, making the idiot claim that anyone advocating confrontational tactics was likely a police agent. That week, the Poor People's March was repeatedly attacked by police, making targeted arrests of activists wearing masks or refusing to be searched. March participants had agreed to be nonviolent. The police were every bit as violent as they chose to be. Speaking with the Huffington Post, Bloomberg's former deputy press secretary, Jordan Barrowitz, doesn't rule out the possibility of Bloomberg mounting a presidential campaign in 2016. Considering that Bloomberg falls right in line with the Obama administration on gun bans and was caught using taxpayer-funded resources to operate mayors against illegal guns. So pretty much the CIA, NYPD, and Bloomberg were using the Psychological Operations Unit to promote pacifism.
So, pacifism is an error, and any Catholic should deplore that error be used against anyone, even against Muslims. If you disagree with the militancy in Islam, then you should address that on a religious basis, because it's a religious error. Most Muslims don't embrace that militancy. That's an opinion of the Quran, which many don't follow anymore. But for the government to sponsor and use it, this is seriously concerning. And I have to say that the friction we've gotten in our order since 2016 has been from groups who pretty much hold the same position. I think it's Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, always ready to censor any kind of social media posting in which you would advocate that you use physical force to defend yourself against certain selected groups, whether they're non-Christians or whether they're not Europeans. And that is pacifism. And it's also absolutely unreasonable. Pacifism, though, is an error that has just flooded the church, especially since the Second Vatican Council. And you see it in the whole tenor of Gaudium in Spes, the final document of Vatican II, as if you could somehow bring man to a better spiritual state by pretending there are no conflicts and never condemning error. And that striving to be at peace with everyone is how to preach the gospel. And Christ Jesus didn't strive to be at peace with everyone. He just strove to tell them the truth that his divine Father told him to say. And so the real Christian religion is you do the right thing even if that offends people and causes conflict. And yet you have the right to defend yourself against unjust persecution. So if you so are motivated by the desire never to be in conflict, then you're just a coward. Don't pretend you're some kind of virtuous pacifist, or you're a draft dodger, or you're just a sentimentalist. Because if you actually say that women and children that are being genocided or raped shouldn't have anyone defend them, that's evil. That's malign. You are consenting to injustice. The only one who would do that is an ally of the evildoer. You see in the talk of Saint Bernard to the men of the Second Crusade, it was like, fly to arms, he says. Don't tolerate. And Eugene IV, Pope Eugene IV said the thing, don't tolerate injustice, fly to arms. That means run, grab your sword and get out there and fight. This is not anything, it's complete opposite of pacifism. But it's also the true quest for peace, because you cannot have peace unless justice is restored, justice and tranquility. And that can only be restored by defending the innocent with force of arms when they're threatened with physical violence. And you require that level of intervention. That's not always required, but when it is required. And so, but I have found traditionalists who are pacifists, you know, it's kind of amazing. They claim they're traditionalists and then they're spouting Emile Arnaud's philosophies.
Yeah. So all the pushback we get from, well, the Crusade channel, Michael Matt, all of those, and Barnard, it's just shocking that they say, "Oh, we're traditional Catholics, we're traditional Catholics," right? But when it's come time to actually do something to help protect them, or even help us get stuff to help protect them, they're like, "Oh, no, 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 don't want to do that, don't want to do that." I was like, "It's not legal. It's not illegal. It's lawful. It's right."
I have to say that from my experience, my memory might fail me, the entire English language Catholic media tends to be pacifist. They were against the first and second Iraqi war. They were against the Afghani war. They were against using violence to retaliate against 9/11. And I can't remember any of the nameable names ever saying that it's a good thing, you know, even honoring and respecting veterans, other than, you know, the ones from the Second World War, nothing in modern times. I don't remember talking about Vietnam vets and if they do talk about military ideals, it's always the Cristeros and the Vendée who lost. They never laud the Catholics who won. And that's extremely Marxist. That's Marxist critique at a very high level, if you don't notice. And I've never heard them organize a day of remembrance for the taking of Jerusalem in 1099, or praise St. Louis for having led a crusade. Maybe one of them did. They talked a lot about the Lepanto flag. I think back it was in 2016 or 2018, and we do sell a Lepanto flag, and many traditionalists buy that, though it's not as great a fervor as years ago. And there are organizations that call themselves Lepanto Institute, but they're all about going along with globalism pretty much, and accepting Bergoglio, who's obviously not a Catholic, as their leader. So, and none of them at all says anything should be done to restore order in the church, even if that requires force of arms. They would never hold that position. So pacifism is, a lot of people who claim to be official, authentic Catholics are pushing this error. And this is why, if you think it's hard to find an authentic Catholic parish today or an authentic Catholic organization, you can search high and mighty for it. You're not going to find it. It's going to be very difficult to find. And a general, I'm not saying the US military is worthy of Catholic chaplains, but a general aspect of the decline of true Catholic militancy is evidence of the fact in the last 30 years, the number of Catholic chaplains in armed forces in the United States is doing almost nothing. And I know it's difficult to be, but I think that's part of the thing. At the same time, where are the Catholics advocating we should defend ourselves with force of arms? We have that right. Why they only talk about gun rights within the categories that the GOP lays down for them to talk, but they never actually do anything about it. They will talk about defending the border, but they don't actually do anything about it. So there's an intellectual pacifism and there's a pacifism in practice, and our order is opposed to both of those errors, obvious reasons. But I do think this is why we get so much kickback from these groups. Yeah. Yes, AJ.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we first started out, everybody was all nice and friendly. And once they learned that we were not one of them or Gladio or something else, they all like, stay away, stay away. So if you're a honest, true Catholic who is not brainwashed by this French socialist and wants their son or daughter to serve Christ properly, have them contact us.
I think that would be a good suggestion. I second that recommendation. We do want to form Catholics in the true Catholic spirit. I think you couldn't get it better anywhere in an organization that's geared for lay people. And I would also caution parents to be very wary about anything that's advocating pacifism in the formation of their young people. And never tolerate slogans like war is bad, or violence is bad. Even the word violence, people say, oh, you say the word violence and what they mean is unjust violence, or are they pacifists? So Catholics have always said just or unjust violence. And just violence is like, using physical force to defend yourself, or even take back your property. But you noticed how in modern speech, people just say the word violent. Oh, he was violent. Well, was he justly or unjustly violent? Oh, he was angry. Was that just or unjust anger? And if you think being angry or getting violent is always evil, then you're going to end up denying Jesus Christ, because he got angry and violent in the temple when he cleansed it with a whip of cords. He actually made a weapon because he didn't have one at hand. Make a weapon, if you say I'm a servant of Jesus Christ and we're making weapons, they're like, and that's pacifism. Anti-gun movement, that's pacifism. Shutting down gun manufacturers, making them liable, that's pacifism. Mm-hmm. Not having any guards at your church, so everyone in your church gets massacred by terrorists, that's pacifism. Letting everyone get massacred in your diocese or in certain churches or diocese and not even inviting a PMC in to teach your people self-defense, that's pacifism. Not saying that war is always evil or money is a weapon and things like that. The word weapon has become evil. Oh, you can't say weapon or gun or sword. That's evil, So much so that I think on Twitter, you can't even use the name of a weapon in a sentence where it has a verb and it's acting, because it's like, oh, that's violent. You're advocating violence. The advocation of violence, that's, pacifism. So Twitter, Facebook, what other medium out there, they're complete pacifist platforms. If you even express yourself the way Catholics spoke 3 centuries ago, they'd shut you down. You can say, for example, the Islamic terrorist who cut 3 people's head off in the church should be arrested, but you can't even say he should be executed. They'll ban you for that. Because even if it's obvious you mean he should be tried and executed. But even if you say he should be tried and executed, they'll ban you. Oh, you're advocating violence. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this doctrine comes from Jews should make us open our eyes. The fact that it was popular for people involved in Satanism should open our eyes. Are we going to think, talk, and act like non-Christians and Satanists? So we're going to go back to thinking way Catholics have always thought.
Yep. Yeah. So if you want to act like true Catholics, want to join a true Catholic organization, join Order Militaris Catholicus. And we did a program yesterday on how to do that, and please do contact us and join us in our work here.
And I would add that we now have bank accounts that can receive bank wires from around the world. And AJ will put a link in the program notes where you can donate to one of our many projects that help the Ukrainians defend themselves, combatants and non-combatants. And this is a way to show your true Catholic militancy.
Yep. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Vol.
Deus Vol.